Kyle Mohan Racing, and it is time for another performance workshop, a tech talk about this beast, our 1,000 horsepower Formula Drift RX8, which is running our 3-rotor that between KMR and Mazda Tricks we have developed over the past many years. And this is a very similar motor to what Ron Bergenholtz ran back in his Formula Drift program, and also a very similar motor design to what we ran in our MX-5 a few years back. And we've even sold a few of these motor packages to different racers and drifters around the world with great success. So the question that won the topic for tonight's talk is, what porting are we running in our 1,000 horsepower RX8? And I think this question came about because a lot of people expect really aggressive or wild porting to make high horsepower numbers. And generally, that is an easy way to go, and that is the case in a lot of engine builds. But for our setup, after years of trial, experimentation, and different port designs, we are actually back to running a KMR street port. And so we're going to talk a little bit about porting and what port exactly I'm running. The Kyle Mohan Racing street port was designed off of influence from Mazda Tricks and years of our different testing and developments. And we did, for 4 years up the middle, run half bridges. As you can see, I've got a half bridge template here sitting in front of me, this being that half bridge. And we did generate easier peak horsepower. At that point, it was 13B motors running around 700 to 750 horsepower. And then we went to the semi-peripheral port, which got us well up into the 800, 870 plus horsepower range on 13Bs. But it wasn't about the peak horsepower, especially when it came to Formula Drift style performance and drifting. It was about being able to run against V8s, 2Js, and other larger displacement motors with our rotary packages, and chassis like the RX8 or FD3S or MX-5, which the RX8 is a heavier chassis, the size being more comparable to a Mustang. So we realized that it wasn't about a peak horsepower at high RPM, being that we could make 1,000 plus horsepower, whether it was a 13B or a 20B. We needed torque, we needed reliability, and we needed mid-range to combat the same driving styles and motor performance usability that 2Js, inline 6s, LS motors, V8s, and other performance engine builds were able to do. So we ended up coming back to street ports, long story short. And after going fairly large with our street ports, trying excessively large primary ports, we came to a very balanced setup. And for the past 2 to 3 years, we've been down to what I would call almost a traditional street port. So we've eliminated that half bridge, and we're not running too big of a primary port. And that is actually where this template originated from that I sell on my website, which is the KMR Street Port Half Bridge. I think most people run it as a half bridge, which is an amazing, high horsepower, sounds great, great drivability with this size primary. But in our Formula Drift car, we got rid of that half bridge, and we were able to drive our mid-range torque numbers up by keeping air velocity up, not running an excessively large turbo, which some people look at this and go, that's massive. It's really not. We're running a slightly smaller than 1.0 rear AFR, and it is a billet front wheel. So we ended up aiming for spool and mid-range power. And I think that's kind of interesting. Most people expect us to be half bridge, semi-peripheral, full bridge, but we are literally running a classic street port. Now, some things to note. Our street port does carry the duration up pretty far. And I'm also pushing our intake timing open right here earlier. So this bridge is a little narrower if you do cut your half bridge than a traditional bridge port would be. Now, we've ran these for years. We've never had issues. Don't make any adjustments without being an expert on port timing. But there is the ability to take and drag this bridge further or turn it into a full bridge if you're able to create your own bridge over here. And we're working on a full bridge template. We're just still in the testing. But back to the point of the conversation, we did away with those bridges in our Formula Drift program. Ran 30 pounds of boost on the 3-rotor, and with that 1.0 rear AR, got well into the 800 to 900 horsepower range solely on boost. Yes, we're running high ethanol content fuel. I definitely recommend ethanol blends. Everybody knows that, especially in rotaries. But it's all about balance. With that balance, you're not trying to go too aggressive on your exhaust port. I would say this is larger than the traditional racing beat exhaust port, and I would say that this is larger than the traditional Mazda Tricks racing beat, most of the other templates that are out there as far as street ports go, and it is designed for turbo application. But that's how we were able to get our power, our performance, and not abuse the motors only at high RPM. With this porting combination and this turbo combination, our power peak is coming in at roughly 8,000 RPM, allowing us to spin the motor to 9.5, 9.8, 10,000 and have a power band that looks a little more like a traditional motorsports power band than a traditional rotary power band, meaning our power band will actually come up, peak, hold steady, and then start to taper off as you get up around 10,000 versus the typical rotary, which would be semi-peripheral or bridge or half bridge, which instantly, as soon as you get to about 5,000 RPM, they have no bottom end, it takes off for 10,000 RPM. And I had many semi-peripherals, semi-peripheral half bridges, full bridges that made exceptionally good horsepower at 10,000, 10,500 RPM, but they didn't make exceptional horsepower at 5 to 8,000. And that's what we did for our Formula Drift program. That's what we did with our porting knowledge, was we didn't extend the port down. There was not a necessity to. We have plenty of volume. We didn't pull it in towards the oil control rings. We don't want oil smoke. We want our oil control rings to seal. We used up what we could in intake opening timing, and we pushed the duration up long enough to get the amount of volume we need in, with a matching exhaust port allowing the volume to get out. Quick references I have on the ground right here. This is actually a stock FD3S housing, very similar to a 26 or a 20B or a Cosmo housing, and you can see our actual volume increase. I would say, if you're just looking at that, is roughly 20 to 30%. Our line taking off this leading edge because the rotor sweeps across. I think a lot of people think the rotor's coming up, but as it rotates, it's sweeping. So you're actually opening first in this area and then allowing it to stay open as the rotor carries up, giving it nice duration. On the exhaust side, this is a 20B housing, so it's already got a fairly large exhaust port on it. But you can see we're taking and increasing that volume by roughly 20%. You can see in here it's also still got the factory 20B exhaust sleeve. We get rid of those. We run a traditional 13B exhaust sleeves or aftermarket sleeves. So, a little bit of porting knowledge. Obviously exhaust port timing is critical. By moving it up or down, you are changing your exhaust port timing. That's why I don't sell a fixed position exhaust template. You need to make your own decision on application, turbo versus naturally aspirated, on where you want your exhaust port timing. With our intake templates, we didn't go and do anything that would expose seals or anything that would cause unusual wear, but we did want to maximize the usable area for volume and intake timing. So that's been a little bit of a KMR workshop. Formula Drift RX8 porting, not that crazy. It's a street port. It's just a big one. And like I said, we have tested everything out there, from full bridges to half bridges to semi-peripherals to full peripherals to semi-peripherals with half bridges. And after 17 years roughly of driving rotary cars in Formula Drift and driving other cars for other people as well, we just wanted a broad, reliable power band. Easy to build, easy to maintain, easy to tune, fantastic power. Make sure to ask those questions. I'll be doing my best to answer the questions that came through. My phone is running out of battery. And definitely follow up. This video will also go up on YouTube, along with a lot of our other tech-oriented videos. Kyle Mohan Racing, follow YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, KyleMohanRacing.com, the eBay store, all that good stuff. Say hello and check out what we have.